السلام حياة قد جاء في القرآن أن السلام.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to iTREND on ITV. I'm your host, Zahira Bam Ismail. Exams are coming to an end. We're all planning what we're doing for our holidays, where we're going, what we're giving out to people around us. But it's also time to be cognizant of people in our country, people that have, people that don't have. This is a time where we want to celebrate with our friends and family, but it's also a time to consider how safe we're going to be during this time, but also in terms of giving. One of the people sitting here with me today is a renowned community worker, Mohammed Hussein Esaf. If you haven't heard his name, it means you're probably not anywhere in South Africa. Hussein's name is synonymous with charity, with benevolence, with giving back to the community. But he's also somebody who has helped so many NGOs and NPOs in their own personal spaces and given a platform to them for learning. Very often, many of us in the NGO space have never had an opportunity to be able to expand on the amount that we know. It's come about because of experience. If you're busy working in an NPO organization, many of the things you would have learned have been by chance, by something that you've read along the way, or just by years of experience and by mistakes that have happened along the way. But for me, somebody like Hussein stands out so strongly because he's come to the forefront and offered his services to so many organizations who we've taken it with two hands, and small things that we've learned along the way have been absolutely phenomenal. So without further ado, Mohammed Hussein, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the studio.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for that introduction. Let me just stay at the top. It's easy to give away somebody else's money. So the benevolence has never been necessarily from my own pocket. But thank you very much. I think I appreciate it.
But having said that, I think you're the one person I know who's always so conscious of how you've even given away other people's money.
Sure.
And I think that accountability and not being able to just say, I'm giving away money, has been so strong because if anything, I think you're more cautious of it than spending your own money.
Yeah, well, I suppose, and it's part of the organizational culture that I've always belonged to. So the several organizations I've worked for over the years, close on to 24 years for that matter. And there's always been a culture of good governance, or attempted good governance. There's been a culture of transparency.
Yes.
There's been a culture of development. And so that is something I inherited. And I can talk about it with confidence because it's been part of my journey through the years.
And that's what impresses me so much always about you, is your willingness to give so selflessly over and over again. And I always say that you can see a true leader in their position when they're comfortable in their space and not afraid to share of their experiences and their knowledge so that other people can catch up and can learn and can do the same thing. And if not, based on the experiences you have, you give other people an opportunity to even excel in their field.
Sure. And I think again, so it's again reading, and so Stephen Covey talks about in his 7 Habits, the abundance mentality.
Yes.
You know, what do you lose by giving someone else? And I'm not talking of giving money, I'm not talking about giving a physical item, giving advice,
yes, giving
experience, sharing. So Stephen Covey's concept in his 7 Habits is the abundance mentality. And again, I suppose somewhere along the line, many years ago, someone basically lectured me about the proverbial bus,
yes,
that's going to knock you. And what's the legacy that you're going to leave behind? And so already from back then, it was about how much do you teach and pass on in the hope that you share and they learn and they grow. And if it's a good model, people will take it and run
yes,
with it. You know, if it's a bad model, they'll come back to you and they'll tell you, no, it's not going to work. Yeah.
Being in this space, as you've mentioned, for over 24 years, you obviously know the field very well. As we progressing in our country as a democracy, we're seeing this disparity so greatly between those that have that and those that don't have. How are we, as people who are watching the show or as people in the community, able to assist to say, I can actually do something to help bridge the divide? Because I think, you know, we don't want to be sitting back saying we're going to just be armchair critics and pass comments. How can we get involved and even do small things that make a difference?
Well, there's 2 or 3 things. So I'm sort of a little bit vested in NGOs,
yes,
and so I need to confess that right at the front. So I think there are a number of very good NGOs in the country that need a lot more support to do the work that they're doing.
Yes.
Number one. So if you unless you have huge resources to do the kind of work to make a meaningful difference to a person, to a community, rather channel that through a reliable, good NGO. So that's the first thing I would tell you. Number two, don't delegate your responsibility once you pass on the money.
Yes.
And in most cases, it's money. So you need to find a way of becoming an active volunteer, and that term active volunteer needs to be redefined. So it's not about going to stand in a soup kitchen and dishing out food. It requires more than that, right? So to become part of the active volunteer. But because you've given your money, and in Islam we believe that we are just trustees, Allah give us the money, but still the fact that you've given the money, there's nothing stops you from asking for accountability from the NGO. So demand accountability of the NGO. Because you want to see it going further than what you can do it on your own.
Yes.
So my personal experience here has been about that. So let me give you a quick story, if I may. So many years ago, when I worked for SENZEF, we started a project off the Golden Highway. We call it the Golden Smile Initiative. It was a 12-kilometer stretch of road, and we said, how much energy and effort can we put into this part of the world, and over a period of time begin to make a change? We were too clear about two things. One is we were not going to find a short-term quick fix solution, because you can't fix, let's say, 300 years of poverty in 1, 2 or 5 years. We were very sure that it's going to take us a minimum of 10 years, if not a generation, to begin to make a difference in those communities. And I'm talking of communities that are called Lehigh, Vlakfontein. We just touched Orange Farm. So these were informal settlements that were coming out, that were being established in those communities. They were neighbors of Zak Park and Lenasia. And so our motivation was simple. Was saying, how do we make a difference in those communities to soften the hearts of the people? Because many of the people who live in those communities work in Zak Park and in Lenasia. And one of the things that we found over a period of time, one of the obstacles to why we couldn't progress as quickly as we wanted to progress, although there was benevolence from the side of a charity that was considered to be an Islamic charity or a Muslim charity, many of these people went to work in communities where Madam and Bas had Muslim names, and by that I mean they were Muslim, but they were treated badly. And so there was this barrier that was there, because Johannes was working for 15 rand a day if he was lucky, in a hot sun, and was getting food in a plastic Tupperware. Anna, who came in winter, had to open up the house at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the people were still sleeping in the warm beds, and she was only permitted to go and clean the dishes in the kitchen. And so the kind of message that you gave is that this is a dichotomy of Islam, because here's a charity coming to say this is the benevolence of Islam, and at the same time this is how we are treated. So there was immediately a wall that we had to break down before we even got to start doing the work. And I'll tell you, the work is still far from where the ideal ought to be, but the work has started.
Alhamdulillah. And I think, you've touched on so many points there. But I think exactly the first thing that you mentioned, it's just the way we treat people around us.
Correct.
And if we want to say we're giving charity on the one aspect and we're a charitable nation, that comes in our akhlaq and our character and how we deal with people on a daily basis in any case. And if we're not mirroring the two, we've got a massive problem.
Correct.
And then the other point that you made was about making meaningful contributions. And I think that's so imperative, because many of us think, oh, but you know what, I can pack my own food hamper, and there's nothing wrong with this. We can pack our own food hampers and go and give it out.
Sure.
But then it stops there. And then what happens after that?
Correct.
And then, whereas, like you're saying, there are huge organizations that you can partner with who can assist you in making a meaningful contribution that's ongoing, that's sustainable.
Correct.
Which is fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. So again, there is a definition of NGO and the work that they do, and maybe good people and people who really want to participate need to find and redefine their relationship with NGOs.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be a giving, I'm going to give you the money, you do it. It says, well, I want to do something, I want to be actively involved. Tell me your programs, let me see how I can fit into your program.
Yes.
And NGOs must adjust, like everything in the world. I mean, today banks are adjusting. I just heard recently that they're having a paperless bank, what do you call it, an online bank. and yet we have huge institutions in this country. How can that shift happen? Certainly within the NGO sector, that shift can happen as well.
Absolutely.
Nothing is stuck.
So as NGOs also, we need to be very amenable and open to change as well, and to learning and to growth and development, because as Hussein has pointed out, in order to be able to make those meaningful contributions, the sustainable contributions, there's platforms and there's ways to do it. But if we're not willing to grow and we're willing to be stuck in those same spaces, we're never going to be seeing that development. Stay tuned. When we come back after the ad break, we continue the discussion with community worker Mohammed Hussein Essof. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back after that ad break. We're chatting to Mohammed Hussein Essof, community worker, renowned community worker, and someone who's always willing to give back in terms of skills, time, effort, and knowledge. Mohammed Hussein, we were speaking about this culture of making a meaningful impact and giving back in a meaningful way. Very often, many of us think, oh, you know what, I've dropped off a hamper, my conscience is clear, I've done what I need to do. Where do we, I know recently I got 2 books from you that have really impacted me and given me something to think about in terms of how do we find the balance of giving charity, but giving charity with dignity.
Yeah, so sometimes we think giving charity with dignity, it means giving it with a smile, making the package look nice, giving it with kindness, maybe even delivering it. So the 2 books you referred to is Toxic Charity and Charity Detox. They're sort of a follow-up of each other, right? And it is written by an American, Robert Lipton, and so Mr. Lipton has 40 plus years in the charity space. And in many respects, this book, in one way, is a confession, but in another way is very good advice on where to catch up or where to start. So I'll quickly just divert. So when I talk to NGOs or people interested in starting work, I say to them, don't start where many organizations started 20 years ago.
Yes.
Start where they are now, because they've already got 20 plus years of learning from here going forward. You know, so you start with a step ahead, number one. So let me go to the point. So Mr. Lipton makes a very example of when the flash light bulb moment came to him. So being involved in charity work for many years, he began to recognize that there wasn't really impact in the work that he was doing. It was helping many people. Many people are walking away with smiles. In our case, ululating, you know, singing for you, du'as for you. And when you go next week and they're in the same situation, or next month they're in the same situation, and he says there's something that we're not doing correctly. So what he did, he transposed himself at Christmas time at the home of one of the recipients. And he somehow managed to get himself invited into the home, and he observes now from the inside what happens when good meaning volunteers come and knock on the door of a poor household and want to give a gift, a well-intentioned gift to the family, because it's Christmas time, like we do in Eid. We want to give gifts and make people feel better. And as he was sitting there, knock on the door, mother went, she opened the door, and as she's opening the door, the father stood up and he left through the back of the house. Family came in, the benevolent family came in, shared gifts, they all drank eggnog, they had a happy time, blah, 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 and they left. And the kids now had their Christmas gifts and they started to opening it up and tearing it, and then, so one of the kids asked, Mom, where's Dad? And Mom recognized that Dad had left already earlier. Anyway, that evening, father comes back home and Robert sits with the family and says, why did you leave? I mean, these are benevolent family. They've gone out of the way to come and share with you. So the father says, the responsibility of providing for the family is mine and my wife. When a stranger walks through the door, as good intention as they may be, what they do in the eyes of my children is they take away my position and my stature as a parent in their eyes. Because father and mother don't provide anymore, strangers provide, organizations provide, churches provide, NGOs provide, governments provide. And he says he can almost trace back the lack of respect and whatever of younger children to parents, because what am I getting from you?
You don't do anything for me,
you know. So he said, I never realized how detrimental. So he asked, okay, so what's the solution? He said, the solution is simple. Do your collection, do what you need to do, right? But arrange some sort of, I use the word kali work, arrange some sort of work for us and pay us in a way, even if it is by way of gifts. So he says, let us go to the church pantry, let us fix the place, let us reset it, blah, blah, blah. And then when we come home with the gifts that we want to give to the kids that we got as pay. So whether you pay us money and we take that, or whether we take the
food hampers.
Not even the food hamper, the gifts, a fire truck, for example, as a toy. Let us take it and put it under the tree. Our children will see that we are still the providers. Absolutely. And that respect is not lost between. And that's when he started his mission. He did many other crazy things, this chap, right? One of the things he did is he relocated into in inverted commas, poor community. He took his entire family and he says, I can't serve in the community if I don't experience their life. So he moved into the community.
Yes.
He lived in a community where there were prostitutions, where there were drug dens, where there were filth, and he says over a period of time, and it's still work in progress, but over a period of time, built a relationship with the neighbors, built a relationship with the community, and the community took charge of their own. They didn't need outsiders to come in and clean the streets for them. The community decided that we were going to clean the street. The community decided we were going to get rid of the drug dens, etc., etc. And that was very key, because who knows best your own house and your own community? You do.
And also, you're not taking away the power that every individual should be holding. And I think very often, without us even realizing, when we are doing charity like this, we do take away their power and dignity.
And it's not done with it's done with the right intention, wrong methodology.
Yes.
And so what Robert does in this book, what Mr. Lipton does in this book, he gives several examples of his experiences over the years, experiences of others over the years, and so many of them resonate with me. In fact, I was just sharing with my colleagues the other day, Robert wrote this book for me. I really feel personally indebted to him, but there's many of these stories I can relate to. So I can replace the name of John with Amina or Yahya or Yusuf.
Do you know these stories?
Because these are the people and these are the stories that I can relate to in terms of real life. So these are not fictional items, names that he made up. Yes. These are real life people, real experience, like I said, based over 40 years. This is still work in progress. His book is called Toxic Charity.
Yes, I'll just hold that up for our viewers to have a look at it. And I love the fact that it says toxic charity, because that's, as well-intentioned as we are, that's very often what we're doing, is we're giving toxic charity.
And so one of the debates I had with many people I've shared the book already with, he said, yes, but you're not in South Africa, he's written this book in another context. Well, yes and no, but read the book, number one. I say read the book with an open mind, or read the book with an open heart.
Absolutely.
Then they say no, but there's certain things that cannot be done in any other way except this, for example, feeding schemes. And Robert gives an alternative of how a feeding program can be run in a dignified manner, in a non-toxic manner.
Yes.
And so one of the takeaways from the book, he starts off the book with something that he calls the oath of compassionate service.
Yes.
And he gives about 8 or 9 points. I carry this with me, Zahira. I've been carrying this now for me for the past almost 6 years. And it's simple advice, but the most important one, never do for the poor what they have the capacity to do for themselves. Now tell me, except for the person, and I'm being politically incorrect, a disabled person, physically challenged, except for a mentally or physically challenged person, which poor person cannot do for themselves what you want to do for them?
No, they all can.
So money is not the point. It's the ability for people to have the dignity of doing. So you find another way of paying, another way of giving the money, another way. So the money will still get to them. Of course, many of the things that need to be done cannot be done without money.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean you do it for them. You find a way of engaging with them, of partnering with them, of working with them. So just on the topic of partnership, again, coming from the NGO circle, one of the things that I've learned over the years is that there are different types of NGOs. There are those that are genuinely interested in working in uplifting a community, and are willing to partner with you because they have a specialized service. So that's another key part. Not every NGO can do everything.
Yes.
NGOs should have a specialization. And so you specialize in something, let another NGO specialize in something, and the two of you partner and go and provide a... So another NGO who may be a specialist in homes and in building and in construction, you partner with them while you go and do the education part. While another one does the feeding part or the food gardens part. The 3, 4, 5 of you is coming together, working with a community, in consultation with a community over a period of time. Again, I'm making this point. It's not a one-year project. Community development is not a one-year project. It's minimum a 10-year project, if not a generational project.
Yes.
But the difference that you will make is phenomenal over a period of time.
But we've seen that already into effect when you collaborated and got other organizations to pull together to do bursaries.
Correct.
And we've seen us, and we've personally seen this, where we've been sponsoring portions of someone's bursaries to now sponsoring full bursaries for a longer period of time while students complete their studies. And the impact of collaboration is very powerful, and I think something that we overlook a little too often.
Sure.
Hussein, tell me a little bit about, because I know there's a book club being planned.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. So these books, by the way, were imported, if you wish. We brought them in from the States. When I say we, I'm using, because it's in my blood, unfortunately, under the banner of SANZF. So SANZF has brought in close to 300 of these books, 200 each of these books. Our intention was really to pass it on to NGOs and to donors to open up their minds to other possibilities.
Yes.
You know, the biggest challenge NGOs have is about modeling their work.
Yes.
There isn't a ready-made cut and paste that you can go out there. In many respects, this institution of zakat is 1400 years old, and yet in many of the countries the way zakat is carried out and practiced, I happen to belong to a forum called the World Zakat Forum, consisting of about 25 odd nations that are involved, and we all have different modalities.
Yes.
And we share and we learn and we exchange. So even in the NGO work, the welfare work, there isn't a cut and paste necessarily. And so what this book begins to do is that, so what we want to do is we want to begin a book club, possibly every 3 to 4 months, a new book. In fact, I've got my second book already lined up, and to say, guys, let's discuss the book simply for the sake of ideas.
Yes.
And I know what happens, right? So people will peep through the first 2 chapters and the last 2 chapters, all right? And then come to the book club. Hopefully a few of us would have read the whole book, and the knowledge that we will share in the book clubs for the rest of us, I think, is vital. So we're planning to start with the first one. Probably it's supposed to have started already end of November. Someone motivated us to say do it early January. So inshallah, end of January we'll run the first book club. We hope to do it nationally. It will be advertised, it will be publicized. I hope that you be part of it as well.
I'm definitely there. I'm definitely there. I think, you know, just from the wealth of wisdom, from the experience I have with working with you, from knowing how much you give, and again, how much we can take in terms of benefiting other people to make a meaningful impact. I think it's not just something you want to do, I think it's an obligation for anybody in the NPO space to say that you're willing to go and learn a little bit so that you can make a meaningful impact. Mohammed Hussein, unfortunately, we've reached the end of our time, and I know I kept saying we needed a longer time to be chatting because there's always so much to cover.
Sure.
But I do hope we get to see you in an online presence so that we can take from these words of wisdom and that value, because every time I have a conversation with you, I know I take something from it that really impacts me and impacts on the way I do things. So I do hope you form an online presence where we can learn from this on a regular basis as well. And inshallah, we look forward to the book club.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much.
There was Mohammed Hussein Esaf, a very renowned community worker, someone who is associated not just with SANZF but with many other organizations. I know on a personal basis we've learned a lot from him in terms of his knowledge that he shared with us on how to do things, how to collaborate, the power of collaboration, the reaching effect of making a meaningful impact, especially in a country like South Africa. We want to make sure that our impact is not just one of a handout. While we well-meaning, we want to make sure that there's sustainability and impactful giving and not giving toxic charity. I think the book club club that's starting in January is an absolutely fantastic idea. It's much needed, and I'm definitely going to be joining, and I look very, very forward to being a part of it. And if you'd like to be a part of that on a national basis, wherever you are, doesn't matter how small your organization is, even if it is something that you do from home, but it's something that you want to be a part of and you'd like to learn, please get in touch with them. We will be posting up their profiles on our social media pages, or you can contact our producers to get Mohammed Hussein's contact details. But start it. No matter where you are, you can make a meaningful and impactful difference to those around you. Shukran for joining us for this segment. Stay tuned for the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to the show. If you've just joined us, we were chatting to Mohammed Hussein Esop, a renowned community worker, and now we're chatting to a lady who is bringing beauty into this world. You know, we often say that we are surrounded by so many talented women in our community, and what astounds me every single time is how entrepreneurial every single one of us are. It's in our blood, it's in our system, it's something that we just do. But every now and again we have these women that are willing to step out into the forefront, put a little bit more of themselves out there and make a difference to everyone around them. Shireen Rawat from Dazzle Couture, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Long overdue. We're glad to have you in studio with us.
Jazakallah for
Shireen,
having me.
tell us a little bit about your journey of being an entrepreneur, and how did you end up in the space that you're in?
Okay. Firstly, I am a mum of 3 beautiful children.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, all 3 are grown up, and you know, they give me a purpose and a need to be the best version of myself every single day.
That's fantastic.
You know, I've always been very passionate about evening and bridal wear. As a newlywed, those years, you know, I would go out and design my own personal garments. And I decided, you know what the hell, let's just get into this. And yeah, I just took that major step. Went overseas, sourced out a few beautiful designer pieces and brought it back home to our shores.
So has this creative flair always been something that you've enjoyed, something that's been a strong part of who you are? I mean, you're mentioning that you've always enjoyed the sewing, and has it always been there?
I guess it always has. I've always just been very, very very passionate about fashion.
And so, you know, I always laugh because I say sometimes we end up falling into our circumstances by chance, and some people know that no matter what they end up studying or whatever they end up doing, this is something they've known since the time they were kids, that it's part of who they are, it's in their veins, it's in their blood.
Absolutely. You know, I have this type of a personality where I love to make people feel better about themselves. I love to make people feel beautiful and special. And I guess, you know, Almighty Allah has blessed me with that. I have this tendency to, you know, just as a woman walks into my store, I will make her feel comfortable with who she is, what she looks like. And yeah, I just love dressing people.
How have you found finding this niche market? Because in addition to just doing evening wear or dress wear, you've also gone into modest evening wear.
Yes.
And that has also been a little more tentative because it's a difficult thing to venture into. I often say, you know, we see the most exquisite dresses and the most beautiful dresses, and so often I see people saying, I've got to find an inner for this and I've got to do that, and it just takes away from everything. So how have you balanced to find that niche market?
Basically, Zaira, what I've done is I have in-house tailors. So when a lady walks into my store and I know that she is a hijabi, what I do is I will source the fabrics. I do it myself. I don't allow my tailors to do it. I'm very finicky when it comes to the types of fabrics that we use,
yes,
that we need to incorporate into that design. So I will source the fabric and I would then just hand them over to my tailors, and then we'll add on the sleeves, make it hijab friendly. Unfortunately, in this industry, in this market, they don't cater for hijabis,
yes,
you know. And more than often, I find brides feeling very isolated and saying, you know, Auntie Shireen, if I had to close up my gown, how would that look? But quite the contrary, it looks exceptionally beautiful. You know, so we match the hijab for you, we do the sleeves for you, all necessary alterations.
Okay, so I was just talking about evening wear. You brought up another topic, which is such an interesting topic for me to discuss, is the concept of brides. Because I think many do struggle with the fact that, you know, it's your wedding day. It is truly the most special day. But you also don't want to compromise on a decision that you've made to wear your hijab. So tell us a little bit about your experience in terms of having to work with these brides to make sure this is okay.
So basically what we do with our hijabi brides, then too, I will do an entire alteration, closing up her garment beautifully. Be it we using the different types of laces. Sometimes I'll get a little bit more of a simpler bride who doesn't want too much. So just a little bit of beadwork added onto the sleeves, onto the back and the front coverage. I will match her hijab. Then I go on to giving her ideas on how to drape it. We drape her hijab for her. We make a veil for her as well. It just complements that look. It completes the look.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that's basically it. And we've had many hijabi brides. They have really stood out. Absolutely beautiful, gorgeous. Yeah, that's basically.
And I think, you know, you to be able to look that beautiful and dignified, and that it doesn't take away from anything else. If anything, it enhances the event.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely.
You've also, in this space, I mean, you're catering from children to teenagers to women to older women to the brides. How do you find time for all of this? Is this something that you just say, I've got a keen eye for it, I know what my clientele would want, and I would just do this? Or do you sit and you research it? How do you find that balance between all of it?
Look, at the end of the day, I am a mom. So I've got to put up a meal for my family. But I guess because I'm so passionate about what I do, and yeah, obviously, you know, I get up in the morning and I have to have a plan. Because if I don't, I'm totally dysfunctional. So I have found that balance with work, with family. I haven't really done a lot of research, you know, in terms of my business. I just took the plunge, went overseas, sourced these, designer pieces and brought them back and just went on to working with them from there on. I mean, it's been, 8 years in the industry, alhamdulillah. I forged many beautiful, wonderful relationships with people overseas. So basically now what we are doing is I am giving them my designs and they are making it up for me. And yeah, we bring it back home.
So you're putting South Africa on the map?
Inshallah, yes.
Fantastic, alhamdulillah. How do you think, is it easy or is it difficult as a Muslim woman to be able to balance the lifestyle of working, traveling, family, community work? How do you think it's an easy thing to be able to do? Do you think we instinctively know how to do that? Or do you think that comes with experience as the years goes on to fine-tune that balance?
You know, Zahira, it's not an easy thing, okay? You've got to love what you do. You've got to be passionate about what you do. And mine hasn't been an easy journey, but it's been a phenomenal, awesome, it's truly been an awesome journey for me. Difficult to strike the balance. Not easy, especially as a Muslim woman, I guess you just have to prioritize, know where you're heading, know what you want out of life. And more importantly, Islam doesn't restrict us as women from being at the forefront of a business.
Yes.
So just go out there and make it happen.
And do what you need to do.
Do what you have to. We all have a purpose. We all have, a journey ahead of us. So basically, yeah, that's just it.
What has been the greatest difficulties you've experienced along this journey? And I ask this of all entrepreneurs because I think there's so many people that are watching, and it's very difficult to know that that you're an entrepreneur. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. Some of us, it's easier to work in a group setting or to have somebody tell us what to do. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, but to be able to be an entrepreneur, I think takes a strong amount of guts and courage as well, that you're willing to say, if I fail, I'm okay. I'll still push through because there's a bigger vision for me at the end of it. And you've got to have that guts to be able to take that plunge and to do it. So what have been the most difficult challenges for you along this journey?
Look, I've had to learn how to travel on my own. At times my husband, my kids could not accompany me. So traveling overseas is not easy.
Yes.
That has been a challenge. And look, the industry has now become very, very competitive.
Yes.
So very importantly, you know, your designs need to stand out. You need to have, it's just about bringing in something which the public will like, which suits our woman. But overall, in this, nothing has really been a challenge for me.
You see, spoken like a true entrepreneur. You've just taken it in your stride.
Yes, I have.
Alhamdulillah. We're going to be taking a very quick ad break. When we come back, we talk about the trends that are heading up for this December period and what we're looking forward to in early next year. Stay tuned. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the last segment of the show. We're chatting to Shireen Rawat from Dazzle Couture. Shireen, we were chatting about your journey, the space that you're in at the moment, but now to talk about what are we looking forward to in terms of fashion for the weddings, for the next year that's coming up, not just the December period. We've just been seeing weddings and weddings and weddings almost every single weekend. It seems like everybody wants to get married in December. But before we just get into that, I want to ask you, when I look at these models and I look at the beautiful pictures that you're posting up, how do we choose the dresses that are right for our body types? Because I think so many of us often will look at a picture, whether it's online or on one of the models of one of the companies we're seeing, and we think, wow, that looks absolutely stunning. We get it, and then somehow it just doesn't look right.
Yes.
How do we choose the right dress?
You know, very importantly, all of us are not a size 8 or a 10 model. We have to firstly appreciate our body types.
Oh, I love that you said that. You've just now become the favorite. Yeah.
We have to, and you know, there's a design out there for every body type. So if you are a little bit more on the plumpish side and you are unable to pull off a mermaid design, then what you do is you emphasize on the good parts of your body. So if you have a small waistline, you get an A-line design, which from the waistline and then just has a very slight kick out. If you're a thin girl, not all thin ladies can wear a mermaid. You need a little bit of meat on that bones to, you know, pull up the dress. So very importantly, your body type. You've got to know your body type. Now, this is why I think, alhamdulillah, I've become quite, the favorite person to go to when it comes to choosing and selecting a design for your wedding or for your bridal gowns, is because when somebody walks into my store, I will analyze that body type. For me, it's not just about a sale.
Yes.
For me, it's about, you know, making her look the best that she can on what would be one of the most important days of her life.
Yes.
So I will analyze her body type. Take into consideration her height, firstly, very important. Secondly, her complexion, what colors suit her, those things are all very, very important.
Yes.
So, you know, it just depends on your body type. We'd all love to wear, you know, what's trending right now are those jumpsuits, you know, with all the extended panels. But all of us can't wear it. So basically what we'll do is we'll select a design for you, and we'll work on that for you, you know, chop and change a little bit, and we get you the perfect design.
Because I think, you know, you mentioned, I was just speaking about the clothing styles, but you mentioned something important in terms of the colors. And many of us don't realize that certain colors just don't work with us, will just either drown us out or make us look bland. And those are things that we don't pay attention to.
Yes.
And especially if you're a bride, that's something that you really have to consider as well.
Definitely. You know, with our skin tones, and we have that yellow undertone. So we've got to be very cautious when it comes to the nude colors, because we don't want to look one color.
Yes.
You know, but look, the season's colors are the nudes. The earthy colors are amazing. We're looking at your rose golds, your pinks. I'm not a fan of rose gold. not with our skin tones. I always just feel that we need something a little bit more brighter. But the season's colors, you're looking at navies, you're looking at greens, you're looking at the pinks, the different shades of pinks. I don't know if you've seen my photo shoot. It's all over Instagram. I mean, we've gone with all the different shades of pink. Absolutely amazing. You know, subtle, not that bright cerise pink, but all the subtle shades of pink. Absolutely gorgeous.
Fantastic. So again, you know, ladies, is that what we're looking forward to in this season for December period? Or is this, do you think you'll see those colors carrying forward also into January, into 2019?
These colors will be carried forward into 2019. Your navies, your nudes, your pinks, your greens, the blush pinks. Yeah, definitely next season, next year's trends.
And when you mention those colors like the navies and the earthy tones, for me, what I love about that is it doesn't date. And especially if you're making such a big investment into an evening dress for whatever reason, you don't want to be able to just wear it for one season. You want to be able to wear it more often.
Most definitely. Yes.
So then I have to ask you this question. How easy or how difficult is it then for a lady who's purchased this beautiful garment and says, you know what, I'm tired of wearing it like this. I need a change in this outfit. Is it possible to come in and then do something else with it so that we have a different look to it?
Yeah, definitely. She comes in to me, and like with most of my clients, for that special day, we have a train on the evening wear. So after that function, they'll come in and say, Shireen, can you please chop it away? Or can we add an extra panel, maybe a piece of chiffon just draping on the one side, just to change that design a little bit. I do all of that. I cater.
Fantastic.
You know, yes, I would do all of that. I mean, it's a small little investment. It's not a cheap one. So, you know, the more use you get out of your garment, the better. And each time you wear it differently. And it still looks so stunning.
Fantastic. Shireen, in terms of Dazzle Couture itself, where do you see yourself heading? What are your plans for the future? You sound to me like a woman who definitely has a plan. I read something that says a goal without a plan in place is just a wish. And when I look at you, I just think of that because I think you sound like a woman who has a goal, who has a dream, but who has a plan with it as well.
Yes, definitely. Sahira, as we speak, the Dazzle brand is evolving.
Fantastic.
Growing, alhamdulillah. My aim, inshallah, is to empower a whole lot more women. And I am relocating. We have many exciting projects for the new year. So yeah, we are relocating, and I do have a plan. I do have a goal, and inshallah, with the help of Almighty Allah, I mean, that's the success behind, that's the first and foremost success behind the Dazzle brand. So, we are looking to relocate into a new, fresh, exciting premises. So there's lots of projects. So we can
find out from you on Instagram and on your social media profiles as to the updates when it happens as well.
Yes, check my page on Instagram, and everything will be there.
And in terms of your advice for people who are either in this industry or keen to get into this industry, or young girls who are watching this who have a flair for fashion, what would be your advice to them?
You know, if they are gifted with that and have a flair for fashion, go for it. Go for it. All of us can't be doctors, lawyers. Work on that creative side. Work on it. Just do what you want, do what makes you happy. And more importantly, if you're passionate about something, that is when you would give it your 200%.
Absolutely. You say that, and I think it ties in so much with who we are as Muslims by saying that, no matter what you do, you just have to do it with excellence.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what it is. And I love the fact that you say, we don't all have to be doctors and lawyers. The world needs lots of people.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, I say this to my girls all the time, the world just needs good, kind people. So no matter what you do, just be good and kind. And as Shireen says, you do it with excellence, and then you'll have ultimate success.
My dad always raised us with one thing. He always said, whatever you do it with kindness, do it with honesty, be very sincere. Flop-proof recipe for success.
And such beautiful words of wisdom and advice. And I think something that we've forgotten to hold on to, because we're living in a time where everyone says it's only just for me and whatever I can do, and I'll cut anybody else out in the process. And I love the fact that, you know, those kind of words of wisdom also make you realize that Rosie is Rosie. Whatever is yours will be yours, and you're comfortable in that.
That's so true. You know, Rosie comes from Almighty Allah. And yeah, any industry that is competitive. But look, competition's healthy.
Competition's wonderful.
You know, it's healthy.
Absolutely.
It motivates you. It pushes you to be the best version of yourself.
Absolutely.
So, you know, wish the next man well. Allah has written out for you. So what is due to you, you are not going to miss.
Absolutely.
You know, and yeah.
Shireen, very quickly before we end, if you can tell us about this, tell us about the new photo shoot. Tell us about this new range, what we have to look forward to. Tell us about the launch of it. I know you've had a lovely, fun-filled week with beautiful women in our community. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, we had a photo shoot last week, Monday. You know, I just got off a plane on Thursday night, and I had the shoot scheduled for Monday. I had quite a few women, all being my clients, who were so more than willing to just model for me. It was amazing. Our venue was the Art Farm. I had Artemis, the photographer, who did the entire shoot for me. And yeah, you know, we had our girls in these dresses. Feathers are trending at the moment. Gosh, they are big. So we had quite a few of those type of designs. It was very exciting. You know, I had makeup artist on board, Zibi Patel. I had makeup by Fatima. We had Terenzo Zaini. So they were, you know, they collaborated with me and came and did the hair and did the makeup. It was an amazing shoot. Everybody had fun, more importantly. Everybody had fun. We prayed that the rain would stay away, and it came at the last hour. But alhamdulillah, you know what? We braced ourselves for that weather, and the shoot was just amazing.
So where do we as the public get to see these pictures and the shoot?
You can go onto my Instagram page, dazzle_couture_, and yeah, you can view all my designs.
Fantastic.
The entire photo shoot. We did a photo shoot this Monday with Termina Saint at the Houghton golf course. That was amazing. Soon, the pics will be up soon on the Dazzle Couture
Fantastic.
page.
Thank you so much for joining us on air. I think I'm always so thrilled to see strong Muslim women in the forefront of many companies, ideas, concepts and creativity, because I think it always bodes so well for our daughters and the younger generation watching, saying these are the leaders in the field. So Jazakallah for being that for so many.
Jazakallah for having me, Sahira.
Absolute pleasure. I think, you know, the best thing about sitting and having conversations with entrepreneurs, with people in our community, is not just to learn about the businesses they have, but to also learn words of wisdom in terms of how we need to carry ourselves, what we need to do to be able to ensure success. Everybody's recipe for success is different, but each one is so rooted in faith. And for me, that is what's absolutely brilliant, because when you've got that, the recipe, as Shireen said, can always and only be success. Shukran so much for joining us on air today. We look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.